Hello everyone, my name is Laura, this is my channel Laura's Little Library, and welcome to today's video, which is the end of the year book tag. So it is the end of 2024, and so I thought a great wrap up for the entire year, especially because I didn't do very many wrap ups due to my break here on YouTube. I thought the greatest way to wrap up the year is through the book tag, the end of the year book tab. So to preface, I read 85 books as of filming this video, so I will be pulling out of the 85 that I started from January 1st of 2024 until pretty much last night. Yeah, last night / 1 o'clock this morning when I stayed up to finish a book. So let's get into it. The first question on this is, what is the most disappointing book you read this year? And for me, that was To Kill a Shadow by Catherine Quinn. I had really high hopes for this book. It sounded like a fantasy that I was going to enjoy a lot and get really sucked into, and the reality is I forgot the book immediately after I read it. Even as I was reading it, I wasn't remembering things, and I didn't feel like it was a huge hindrance to my enjoyment or lack thereof of the book. Sounds kind of harsh, I know, I'm sorry, but I did not enjoy this book. I didn't like the characters, the plot was way more basic than I thought it was going to be. It disappointed me quite a bit. Next up is, what is an underhyped book that you read this year? And here's the thing. The book that I'm choosing for this, the first book in the series was talked about a lot, but I don't think a lot of people read it, and so when the rest of the series continued to come out, it was pretty underhyped, at least here on BookTube. It's not generally underhyped, but I think for how good this book was, it is underhyped, and that is Wisteria by Adeline Grace. This is the third and final book in the Belladonna trilogy. So Belladonna came out, a lot of people were really excited to read it, but I didn't hear anybody talking about Foxglove or Wisteria, which came out this year. And those were my two favorite books. I mean, I loved all the books in this trilogy, but I really loved Foxglove and especially Wisteria. So I think that these books were underhyped because the series was underhyped, even though the first book was very well known within the bookish community. Next up, the opposite. What is an overhyped book that you read this year? And I would say Love Light Farms by B.K. Borson was pretty overhyped. This book was so close to being a 5-star, except for like two major things about this book. The ending, I did not like the ending at all, and the miscommunication, I feel like really was the only thing driving the plot of this book, which sucks because I hate the miscommunication trope and I don't think it needed to be there in order to be a really good book. So because of that, I think this is overhyped. It was one of those Christmas books that I saw everybody recommending this year to read around the holidays, and so I read it and I was just very unimpressed. Still a really good book though, like I would recommend it, it was overhyped. Next, what is a book that surprised you this year? And the book that surprised me, I know I've talked about a lot, but that's because it surprised me, and that is That's Not My Name by Megan Lawley. This is a thriller book about a girl who wakes up, she has no idea who she is, where she is, why she's alone, what happened, nothing like that, until a man comes to the police station and says, "You're my daughter, we're going home, let's go." But something feels off about this. And you also follow another point of view of a boy who is dating this girl who disappeared and nobody can find her, and everybody thinks that the boyfriend, the guy we're following, had something to do with it, but he didn't. I thought that this was kind of a basic plot sounding book. Like, this is the kind of thing that I hear a lot about in like podcasts and TV shows, and so I was like, yeah, I'll read it in book form. But then it ended up just being so good. I couldn't put it down. I was enraptured in this book, and that really surprised me. So this is my most surprising read. Next up is, what was your favorite couple from this year? And I'm not sure if this book came out this year or if I just read it this year. Again, I'm just pulling from the 85 books that I read because I'm treating this like a wrap-up. But my favorite couple is probably From This Cursed Light by Emily Thieve. This is the second book in the duology. The first book is This Vicious Grace, And so this is the second book. I read it, I loved it. I didn't think I was going to love it as much, but really what was the driving force was the romance between these two characters. So they are definitely one of my favorite couples this year. I don't know if they're per se my favorite, but I have other books where I love the couples later on in this list, so I will talk about them anyway. So moving on, what was your favorite character of this year? And this is a really hard question for me to answer. I don't remember characters as much. I'm much more of a plot-driven reader rather than a character-driven reader. So questions like this is really difficult. But my answer to this is going to be the main character from The Honey Witch. This book was beautiful, atmospheric. It's by Sydney J. Shields. And I love our main character is so free, and yet she's so determined, but she's not perfect. And just the atmosphere and the world that we were put in with this main character just all came together so beautifully. So definitely The Honey Witch. What is a favorite new to you author this year? So this author is very well known and well loved here on BookTube, but I finally started reading their books and I love them, and that is Ashley Herring Blake. She is the one who wrote Delilah Green Doesn't Care. I also have Iris Kelly Doesn't Date, and I am currently reading her newest book, which is a Christmas book, Make the Season Bright. I have very much enjoyed. I put off reading this book for a very long time just because I didn't think I was interested in it, and then I read it and I loved the writing and I love everything about it. So I'm really excited to finish reading this like companion series by Ashley Herring Blake and continue reading this author's other books because she is my favorite author of this year. What was the happiest book you read in 2024? And for me personally, the happiest book that I read was Fence. And this is a graphic novel by C.S. Packett and illustrated by Joanna the Mad and Joanna Lafuente. They have the same first name, but it's spelled differently, so I'm not sure if it's actually the same. But this is the happiest book of the year for me because I am a fencer and I don't see a lot of fencing in the books that I read. Everything is, in fantasy, it's sword fighting, you know? It is to save your life rather than fencing the sport. And it's also just that feel good, this kid who is got a lot of natural talent, but his technique is trash, and he is hoping to get on scholarship to this school for fencing, and he's got the rival who is the second best fencer in the country, and like it's just very much like that rags to riches, hopefully, fencing mentality with the perfect rival, and it's gonna be rivals to lovers, and it's queer, and I'm just so excited. This book just makes me so happy, and I have read first 5 volumes of this and they all just make me so happy. So what was the saddest book of 2024? And this one, again, it's sad very much for me. I don't think it will make everybody else sad in the same way because it's not like a sad book, you know? But that is A Fragile Enchantment, and this is by Allison Saft. The reason this is sad is because it's a romance, it's fantasy, but it's very much based on like Ireland and England relations of when England colonized Ireland and how the Irish were looked down upon and things like that. And that touched home for me very hard, and it did make me cry because there were quite a few parts in this where our female main character, who comes from the Irish representing side of things, just said things, and it hurts. It hurt me. So this was the saddest. It almost made me cry, and it's just because of how close it comes to the reality of our world while also being in this beautiful romance story. So please pick this up. What was the most frustrating book of 2024? For me, the most frustrating book is actually the book I stayed up until 1 a.m. reading last night, and that is Infinity Alchemist, and this is by Kaysen Callender. I didn't want to say I had high hopes because I haven't heard anybody talk about this book. I didn't hear a lot of hype about this book, so I didn't want to go in with too high expectations, but it was an alchemy, queer, dark academia, so I naturally had high hopes for what it was, but it frustrated me so much because this was so close to being so good, but there were parts of the writing that just kind of stunted and took me out of the story, and it was really difficult. Like the transitions were terrible. I had a really hard time differentiating between what was memory, what was happening, what like kind of the timeline of things a little bit. And again, like, the characters, they were great. I loved the romance and everything, but I think it should have been handled better by the characters. Considering who the characters are, some of their reactions just really surprised me, and that was really frustrating. I feel like that took away from the main plot of the story, which was so close to being good as well. It was also very frustrating of like, I'm waiting for this thing to be revealed that I know is true and that the main character knows is true, but it's supposed to be revealed, but I was like, no, I can infer this almost immediately. And just kind of some of the relationship dynamics between the characters upon first meeting versus end of the book, it was just confusing. It was so close to being really good, and that's why it was so frustrating. Next question is, what are your favorite covers of 2024? And so I'm going to show the book that I read and the book that came out by the same author this year as some of the prettiest covers. So Throne of the Fallen by Carrie Maniscalco. Of course, this is gorgeous. Of course it's going to be one of my favorite covers. And then, of course, Throne of Secrets. Throne of Secrets, also just absolutely gorgeous. I love the colors. I love the designs. It's busy, but not completely busy, you know? Like, you still have your negative space, but this is just gorgeous. So, the Carrie Maniscalco books from this year. These are my favorite covers. I've read this one. I'm about to start reading this one. Oh my gosh. Oh my word. What is a book that you read in 2024 that you just haven't stopped thinking about? For me, this was very easy because I haven't stopped thinking about it since I read it, and I read it months ago, you know, middle of the year, and that was The Scarlet Alchemist, and this is by Kylie Lee Baker. I can't quite pinpoint what about it that I can't stop thinking. If it's the plot, the characters, the end of the book, like, I don't know what it is, but this is the book that I've thought about the most this year, and I read it halfway through the year, and I still think about it. Like, reading the Alchemist book that I talked about a little bit ago, Infinity Alchemist, I was thinking about this book quite a bit. And I just got so excited because I'm not really much of like an Alchemist reader, but this I loved. And so I'm definitely giving it a chance. This is a book that is historical China with a female main character who joins the competition to be the royal alchemist, but because it's ancient China and she's a girl, things are hard. So yeah, competition, alchemy, love this. Please read it. I love this. What is an unpopular book from 2024 that you loved? I've talked about it quite a bit, but I haven't seen anybody else talk about it, which is why I think it's unpopular. / those who have read it, I don't think really liked it all that much, and that is All That Consumes Us, and this is by Erica Waters, author of The River Has Teeth. I love this. This book should have been my favorite book of the year. It probably low-key is, but that's not what I say in my Best Books of 2024 video. But this is a dark academia about writers who live in this house and they want to improve their craft, and some shifty things happen. They don't necessarily improve their craft in the most organic of ways, shall we say. I haven't seen anybody talk about it. I haven't seen anybody read this, but I absolutely adored it. So please, read this. What is a book you thought you would love but didn't? The book that I thought I would love, because it's Norse mythology, and I love mythology, and I like Norse mythology a lot, so I thought I would love this book, but I didn't, and that is A Fate Inked in Blood by Danielle L. Jensen. It's weird because the two like Norse mythology books I read this year and last year are the books that kind of disappointed me the most, so I'm sad. The second book for this is either just came out, or is about to come out. Maybe it comes out next year. I honestly don't know if I'm gonna read it because I just did not care for this one. It was too slow of a beginning. I liked the romance, but then I didn't like the ending. And I'm just not that invested. It's slightly too politics with not enough mythology, like for my taste. So I thought I would like this, but I really didn't. So that was quite a bummer. What is the most unique book you read in 2024? I don't own this one, but I think the most unique one was Silver Nitrate by Silvia Moreno Garcia, because it is Mexico 1980s? 90s? But it's classic horror films in Mexico City, but slightly more, it takes place more modern day, but it's about like classic horror films. And we have our main character who is working on this project that is a cursed project, or seemingly cursed because of the silver nitrate that is used. So this was definitely very unique because it has a lot of horror film knowledge, and especially for Mexico and Mexico City, which is not something I'm familiar with. I'm not familiar with classic horror. I'm not familiar with horror in Mexico City, let alone classic horror in Mexico City. So this is definitely the most unique book, as it is the one I knew the least about the background for it. But I think you don't need to know a lot of background for this book to enjoy it. So yeah. What is a book you read this year that you'd love to reread for the first time? And for me, that is going to be Love Boat Forever by Abigail Hing Wen. I love the Love Boat series. I absolutely adore them. No, I have not seen the movie yet because I'm so afraid the movie is not as good as the book. I do want to watch the movie. It's not even called Love Boat Taipei. It's called something else. But I did not expect Abigail Hing Wen to keep coming out with Love Boat books, but I have loved all of them, and I'm so afraid that because this one is Love Boat Forever, it feels like a finale kind of book, which makes me really sad, because this follows like the younger sister of the main character from the first book, Pearl's younger sister. So like it could be an open door for a new generation, or it could be a closed like bookends, family is complete kind of thing. But because I'm afraid that this is the last of the Love Boat, which I don't know if it is or not, but because I'm afraid, I want to reread this for the first time because I just love it. Okay, I love this. And the final question is, what is a book that you didn't get to this year but want to, or want to get to early next year? And that for me is The Spell Shop, and this is by Sarah Beth Durst. I did actually start it, but I was reading this physically, and it's slower for me to read things physically than through audiobooks, and with the holidays I had a lot going on, and now that it's the end of the year, I'm trying to get to my goal, which I have not succeeded in thus far. So I just have not continued reading this, but for no fault of the book itself. So I'm really sad I didn't get to it this year. I fully thought I was going to get to it this year, and I just didn't. So I hope to get to it early next year as soon as possible, because I am so excited to read this. Yeah, it's a cozy fantasy. So I would love to read it at any time of the year. But those are all the questions from the end of the year book tag. Thank you all very much for watching. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Comment down below any of your answer to these questions. I would love to hear how your reading year went. I have like a couple other videos that are coming up very quick, so definitely subscribe and hit the bell to be notified. I will try to post a video every week this year, but right now I'm posting more than that just because I am so inspired and motivated with all the really fun end of the year content that can be made. So like my goals for 2025 and more reading vlogs. I'm so excited for some of the reading vlogs I have for early this next year, which you might see this and it might be 2025 already. So, but yes, hit the subscribe, hit the bell to be notified for when those videos go up. I have other bookish social media linked below, like my Goodreads, Instagram, all that stuff. So definitely take a look at the description. And yeah, again, thank you all so very much for watching, and until I see you in the next video, happy reading!